Do you ever find that the process of animation or filmmaking or any other creative outlets has any therapeutic value in and of itself?
For me, in this particular case, making the film wasn't the therapy. It's in a way a filter. Like you see the world, you get the signals, and then you signal something back through the time that you spend in the studio. And I think also because it takes such a long time, especially if you're working with, I don't know, I work under the camera a lot, and sometimes it takes more than a year. And I just, for me, it was valuable to think about what I am actually spending my time on. There was so much time that I spend on that. I wanted to make this process more enjoyable, and that was actually the little goal that I put in front of me to achieve with this film. So yeah, maybe in a way it was therapeutic in this sense, but it wasn't like, oh, I feel so miserable and now like I'm making this film and I feel better. It was a little bit different.
It's funny because the first book I wrote was back in 2007. And back then it was not therapeutic because for me, when I was in depression, I was not able to draw because it was related to work for me. And I was not even interested in holding a pen. And I came with the idea after when I started feeling better. And then I wanted to make something positive out of this bad experience. And I needed to talk about it, but it was not therapeutic. It was just to try to have fun again drawing and creating. But then the other books that I made was more, and the process was different because the first book did have a good, people reacted well about it. People enjoyed it. So I became aware that people would relate to my really intimate story. So I started digging deeper and somehow it was a little more therapeutic to analyze myself and try to see the paths that leads to those dark sides. And that's what I decided to explore.
I think now my answer might differ from what my answer was back then. But back then it was the opposite, I feel like. But this was because obviously working on a project where you don't have a lot of time and you're doing many things, like at least in my case, I was doing a lot of it for the first time. My co-director and other people on the project were more experienced than I was. And it was just, it was very tough to like learn a lot and make it work in very short time. So for me, it was more like a very harsh start with animating, and it was like, whoa, this is so much at once that you have to take care of, and like how can you ever master that? And so I don't know, so for me first it was a lot of overwhelm in animation, but now that I've spent a semester at Gobelin where we did everything on paper, and like at this point I had kind of gotten enough of the fundamentals down that I feel like now I can kind of see where you're getting at when you say it's can be therapeutic if you have like enough time to let it thrive and go, and if you're not under too much pressure, because then it can just, I don't know, be too much to take if you have like shots with especially the crying shots and everything. It was like a lot to take on.
It's a bit up and down for me, I think, as far as the therapeutic aspect. It's always sort of darkest before the dawn sort of way. Anytime I sit down to write something, and I'll usually sit down with a sketchbook away from a computer to sort of slow my brain down. There's usually a stage where I feel like I've completely forgotten how to write and I've no idea what I'm doing. And then if I just keep going at it enough, then I'll have a breakthrough, and then suddenly I'll be elated and think this is the best thing ever. But it's sort of, I oscillate wildly between the two. I think the process of animation is lovely when you get into full flow mode, whether it's drawing or stop motion, and it's almost sort of meditative when you do it, when you get into that state. And that's really lovely, because it's almost my favorite thing about animation is the next day, when you sort of press play on what you've done, and it's like coming down to presents on Christmas morning a little bit. It's this sort of sheer joy of, oh yeah, I did that yesterday, or we did that yesterday, or sometimes they did that yesterday if you're directing. Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah, for me, it's the one thing that my brain can sort of do. I have ADHD, and I have trouble like focusing as the people with that condition do. But yeah, it's like that's like the one thing that I'm able to concentrate on, if that makes sense. And yeah, I often do find it a bit therapeutic, especially the like the nitty-gritty animation itself, the part where you're just drawing without like thinking too hard about like the without thinking too hard about like the actual
meaning, maybe.
Like, yeah, if that makes sense. Like you already have, like what you need to do, you just need to do the work. And that part I do find quite therapeutic.
Yeah, for me, it's that's, I think that's why Conrad and I work so well together, because I'm really like obsessing about the whole, meaning behind it, and the storytelling, and the kind of constructing the story aspect of it. So my mind is also extremely kind of all over the place. I'm constantly thinking about the things and putting things in new perspectives and stuff, and just like, and that's just in my nature to reflect on life in general and how things work. And for me, being able to kind of put some of those ideas and maybe some of the crazier aspects of them into a film, and kind of make a space where you can kind of where you can explore these ideas in with these boundaries, kind of makes it very therapeutic for me, because like if I don't have any projects like that to work on, I go kind of mad. So for me, it's actually very relevant.
For me, I have to say, so what I didn't mention is that I'm not originally an animator. So I do come from the more live action production side, but since I've started my studies, I've been like getting into the animation part, especially in like developing and directing. And so for me, what I think one of the reasons why we did stop motion is because I do not come from the technical point of view. So stop motion for me was like the analog way for me to do it, like really handcrafted, where I thought, okay, that's where I can be part of it. In the end, I didn't animate the puppet. Levin did that, my co-director, because I would say I would never, I wouldn't have the patience for it. So I don't know if it would be really therapeutic for me, but the process before that, so building the miniature set, I was involved in that. And that really was something I felt was really helpful, just to get my mind off things, just to actually work with my hands, because normally, as I do come from the production side, I am more on the computer doing all that. So I really do love that part of, puppet animation or like stop motion in general.
For me, making is like the most pleasurable. I think the story is the most important, but that's where I struggle the most, and I think it's most difficult, but it's the thing that feels most important to me. But once I like have the story and start to making, for me it's quite therapeutical. It's like it takes a long time, but you know that it's going to take that long time, and I really enjoy it. It's like working physically and making the puppets and the sets, and like you can really like listen to some podcast and like dive into that world and that way of working. So yeah, I think definitely it's for me it's therapeutical. I think some people find it frustrating because it takes so long time, but I really enjoy it.